2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. Josh here, fellow deal makers. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with Brian, who's running this interesting group that's an ecosystem builder, doing some awesome stuff in Florida, and one day, maybe the world. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Josh. Appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about who you are and what are you currently working on?
As you said, Brian Kornfeld, co-founder and CEO of Synapse. Synapse is a nonprofit organization that's based right here in Central Florida, headquartered out of Tampa, but with a mission to really help make Florida the world's next great innovation ecosystem. As a community, we've been building and thriving over these last few years, and we've really done a great job as a state to take advantage of some of these opportunities, however harsh it's been on some people over the last 2 years, to really help make us that much better. And Florida has some inherent issues, and we have a major branding problem overall as a state, where people think of us as Florida man and hurricanes and alligators and all those negative things, and the sides that people make fun of for Florida all the time. But we really have an embarrassment of riches. We have one of the best business-friendly states that there is, not just in the country, but if Florida was its own country, it would have one of the biggest GDPs in the world. And so to think about things from that perspective and to understand that innovation can take place anywhere, everywhere, virtually, we really want to help make Florida that next great place where people want to move. They want to move companies. They want to move investment funds. They are growing companies and thus growing their families, scaling their companies. And we've really started to see an uptick over these last few years. And we're going to continually working tirelessly to continue to make that happen.
Yeah. So, why this? Why Synapse? Why nonprofit? Kind of give us the idea of what your vision for what this is and what you're building here.
So when this started and Synapse started, and I'm sure at some point, because I know this isn't like the 2-minute interview, we'll get more in depth into the story, but it really started with a number of people who came together from differing backgrounds, different perspectives, different roles, different stages of their career around the 2016 timeframe. And all of us, no matter what part, just saying entrepreneurship, innovation, startup market, investment, growth should not be this hard. Something is missing. And as we went around and we started interviewing people, a lot of people kept saying the same mantra over and over, that there's no money, there's no talent, no customers. And all of that just didn't seem to make any sense. I mean, we drive around and see massive houses and all this real estate investment. We have amazing universities and people who, 1,000 people were moving to the state every day. And that was just in 2016. And that's only expanded since. And we have some of the world's leading customers right here in the state. I mean, even thinking just right outside of downtown Tampa is MacDill Air Force Base, which is the home of Special Operations Command. And we had the head of procurement at one point during this time frame of 2016 tell us, $40 billion procurement budget, $10 billion budget for R&D, and he had to travel all over the world to spend it and was looking to try to spend it right in his own backyard. So we started doing a lot of meetings and talking about this problem. We were doing it under code and secret names, and talking with people all around the state, and discovered some real truths beyond just what was appearing on the surface, and that it was really hard to connect with people. There were some lacking pieces of education. The companies were not getting involved. The large scale companies were not getting involved with early scale companies. And the news was not spreading the news of the good stories, both internally and externally to the market. And so we took it on ourselves to say there needs to be some type of convening entity, some type of organization that can connect, that can organize, and that can celebrate the entirety of this community and not be biased, not try to push one thing or another, not have a pre-existing mandate, not be in for grant money, not be competitive, and really be Switzerland, be that organization where the rising tide can lift all boats. And the only way we were going to be able to do that was if we were a nonprofit, because then people would not think that we're just trying to do it to pad our own pockets. We are truly here altruistically to help the overarching ecosystem.
Yeah. Now, why Florida? Like, why did you pick Florida as a place to build this and to one day have Florida be the innovative, the capital space, the startup space rather than Silicon Valley? Why Florida?
Well, the easy answer is we all lived here. I'm from here originally. I was born just outside of Tampa in 1982. I've lived here most of my life. Went to college up in Michigan, lived in Gainesville to get my master's, went out to California for a couple of years. But other than that would be what, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, I've lived in the Tampa Bay market. And so that's a significant amount of time and just love it here. Have such a pride, have such a chip on my shoulder. I mean, even going back when I was moving back here from LA, and this was 2009, so it's not like in the Stone Ages here. My girlfriend, then girlfriend, now wife's dad, so now my father-in-law, took me aside for a second. And he asked me, and I wasn't sure where this line of questioning was going, because he had that serious look on his face of
Oh gosh, this
how to
is
ask
scary,
you
right?
something. He goes, what do you do about the alligators? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, when you're like walking the dog or you're taking a jog in the street and an alligator starts chasing you, what do you do about it? And I just kind of had are you serious right now? Like, that's not reality. And we want to show the reality to the world. Synapse uses the tagline, innovation lives here, because that's really what we're trying to help do is help show people innovation lives here, help motivate people to innovate here, and help drive people here. And we know that as the community grows and as more people get involved and as we grow the tent and get more people under the tent and we leverage our strengths and not worry about our weaknesses, not try to be Silicon Valley or Austin or Nashville or New York City, because they have such different resources. We will never have a company like Fairchild Semiconductor. We will never have 1871 or the University of Texas. We will never have Manhattan, but we have so many great resources right here across the state. So when we lean into what those resources are and how we can push them forward, and as more people become a part, the community only gets stronger and everybody gets more opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your father-in-law does have further questions about alligators, I at one point was considered a professional alligator wrestler. So I did that as a career for a short period of time.
Well, there you go. So
So
I mean, it is real. Like that does happen here in the state. It's not completely unheard of, but it's not. I mean, in suburban Tampa, it's not something that's going to happen.
right.
I did grow up with a lake in my backyard, and we would see an alligator in there from time to time, but he left us alone, or he or she. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure. I didn't look up closely.
Yeah, yeah, you didn't find the which one it identified as, but in your building, some of the thoughts of Florida, no capital, no talent, no customers, no innovation, right? And you're starting to see, through Synapse and what you guys are doing, you're starting to see that that's not only, that's not the case. Especially, gators aren't just chasing people down the road like in the, Jurassic Park movies, right? So kind of help us debunk some of this stuff. No money, no talent, no customers, no innovation here in Florida. What have you discovered from starting Synapse till now?
So when we started Synapse and we started to announce what we were doing, one of the very first things that we did was announce our first Synapse Summit in 2018. So this was March of 2018, now going back just a couple of short years. And we opened up the doors to the local hockey arena, Amalie Arena, at the time home of the then one-time Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, now since then three-time Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. And just to say, let's draw a spotlight on the things that don't get a spotlight on them normally. Let's talk about the student-led companies and the research going on at the universities. Let's talk about people who have been growing. Let's talk about some of these service providers who are here to help out and guide people along the way. And let's invite in some of the larger companies that can be customers and early adopters. A lot of the premise of what we did actually stemmed from an article and a case study by EY called The Power of Five, where it talks about 5 personas of the ecosystem that matter. And they talked about entrepreneurs, investors, educational institutions, government, and corporations. And we built on that and also added into that the service providers, the talent, the support organizations, and really just start to let people know oh, all of these options are here and they're right in front of us. And we can do a lot with this and we can see what's here versus in the past. One of our biggest issues is we're very spread out. So if you take a large city, New York, Chicago, for example, San Francisco and Sand Hill Road, you know where to go to connect with people. You know what's present. You know what coffee shops to just go sit and linger in if you want to randomly run into somebody. But here it's so spread and so distant where even if you just take Tampa Bay and look at 70 miles between Sarasota and North Tampa, that's far. And a lot of people don't want to do that. So if we can, instead of trying to create those dense areas, create dense happenings and draw those spotlights and draw attention, it enables further connections. And the connections and the connectors are what mean everything. Even Brad Feld, who's one of the founders of Techstars and somebody who anyone who is a part of ecosystem building knows the name like the back of their hand. So listening to a talk he gave very early on, and he said, every single one of these communities, every community, no matter large, small, thriving, dying, has stuff. But the strongest communities have strong connectors between the stuff. And that's the role that we play. It is building those connective tissue between the stuff, and thus the name synapse as well, because that's exactly what a synapse is connective tissue between neurons. I know before this, the record button was hit. We were trying to pronounce certain things from the medical term, but that's exactly what it is. And going back to the my former rocket science days, and I can and utilizing the terminologies, that's exactly what we want to be. If we can be a strong connector and a celebrator, bring things up to the forefront, let people talk about it, then the entire community lifts itself up.
So I'm looking right now. What's the website? Why don't you give a little shout out to the website where people can, start looking and gather more information on the things that you're doing for the beautiful state of Florida?
So our main website is synapsefl.com. And so we always encourage people to come check out synapsefl.com. But we also have our marquee event, the largest thing that we do every single year is right around the corner. It's coming up Thursday, February 17th, back at Amalie Arena, back in person. We were the last party in town, February 2020, and we're the first big party coming back, especially in this tech and innovation space after these 2 long years. And again, my heart goes out to everybody and anybody who's been affected in any way, shape, or form by the COVID-19 pandemic over the last few years. But we're happy to be back and bring that energy back. So check out synapsesummit.com to learn more about what's coming, 5,000 plus people attending, just massive growth opportunities, really leaning in now in terms of some of these newer technologies or I'll call them hotter technologies because they've been around for a couple of years, but things like the metaverse and NFTs, Web3 and decentralization, so much there can transform the way that we're going to be living. And so it's a very exciting time to be leaning into these technologies.
All right. So you and I, we go to the summit. When is the summit? The next
February 17th. So coming up just right around the corner. Okay. It will be here and gone before we know it. And it is literally the best place to get connected in the state. I mean, I have people take me afterwards and they're like, hey, normally at trade shows and conferences, the best networking happens in the bars afterwards. Somehow you all have something that the best networking happens within the walls of the arena. And it's all set up very intentionally to make that happen. That's exactly what we are trying to do. And every year afterwards, I keep hearing stories on stories of successful connections, partnerships, job offerings, investments, talent acquisition, growth, acquisition. Those things all take place and just over a very short period of time. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. No, this is super cool what we're talking about. But I'm taking a look at the summit coming up and some of the speakers. A lot of my friends from Florida, like here are some of the people that, we've had conversations with, I've interviewed in the past, Carol Ann, Charlie Lewis, the commissioners coming in. We've got all sorts of really interesting people. We got Rupert and like people. I spent some time in Orlando, just like some solid groups coming out to speak. We got Florida funders talking about capital and all sorts of stuff. So there are so many powerful speakers. How do you fit so many speakers? And like, if I come to the event, like, how do I hear everybody, or what's the process of that?
Well, and it's not even just the speakers, but it's the 300 plus exhibiting companies as well. So first off, my hat goes off to the entire Synapse team, because
Yeah,
normally at this time, this close to the event, I'm pulling my hair out and it's so crazy. But the entire team is doing such a phenomenal job, and especially the programming team, pulling together 120 plus speakers to over all these different sessions over the course of the day. So we set up the hockey arena very differently than anybody would ever expect. It was one of those eye-opening moments, and I actually go back to a teammate who we had. She was employee number one. She was our head of business development, ended up taking on, and she now leads the incubator called USF Connect for the entire University of South Florida.
cool.
Shannon Pastizo. We were walking around Amalie Arena just looking at ways that we could do things, because of it. At first, we were just going to throw a party outside the arena in 2018, and then we were going to do a couple of showcase companies around the club level. We kind of looked at each other, just, why don't we do the whole damn thing here? And we just said, like, oh, that could work. And one of the things that I've always hated about conferences, like hate it with a passion, is breakout sessions behind closed doors. And the reason is from two different perspectives. If I'm a speaker and somebody gets up in the middle of my session, that sucks. And especially if it's a small group, like, you see it, you feel it, you don't, it's really awkward. And then if you're a participant and you're in a session that's not so good, either you can get up and leave and you're that awkward person, or you have to sit there for an hour and be bored. So we put all these stages out in the open as you're walking around concourses, so you can stop in and listen in for 5 minutes and say, oh, I like this, I want to sit down. Or, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm going to keep going. And we also make it in a way that all the speakers are accessible to the audience. We encourage it. We want the speakers to talk to the audience, either to do live Q&A or to find a place afterwards to network, because that is what we're about, is building those connections. And it's not just about building connections between two random people. It can be very intentional and set up very intentionally. We, as our chief strategy officer, Lauren Prager, likes to say, we create space. And how you fill that space and how you create opportunities within that space is completely up to you. But we want to put you in that place that you can take that step for success, whatever that might be. It's always fun seeing when the investors get up on stage, because all the entrepreneurs will crowd around because they want that 30-second chance. Get that elevator pitch in really quickly and try to catch an investor's eye and hook them. And it's always something we love to see happen. And it's not just from the speakers on the breakout stages, but our main stage this year is a stage that's going to be right on center ice in the round and very accessible, and building that community feel. We've been so distant for 2 years from each other, doing things virtually. I mean, I wish I could be in a room with you recording this podcast together. You learn more about each other, you bounce, you feed off each other, you feed off the energy. So to create those opportunities for collisions and that opportunities for community feel is something that is so important to making people feel that level of inclusion, making people feel like they're a part of this, and giving them the confidence to take that next step as well.
Hmm. That's awesome. So we go to this event, we go to Synapse in 2022 at the Tampa, what's the arena called?
Amalie Arena. It's
Amelie Arena.
now home to the three-time champion, Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. I will repeat that repeatedly over and over. I'm sure when I give a talk, I will say that multiple times, because I was there when they won the cup this year. I was there when they won it 2004. Grew up on hockey, so absolutely love everything going on there.
Yeah, very cool. So so we go to this event and we find like there's some cool technology coming out of Florida, but it's a time machine, and you're able to go back to 2018 when you were first getting this started, and you could pass off a piece of advice to your 2018 self. Like, what would you tell yourself back then as you're starting this process?
Um, invest heavily in blockchain and hold on to Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah.
It's I would tell myself to keep going and keep pushing, keep thinking about team, keep thinking about what that team structure needs to be, keep thinking about how we can continually innovate and try new things. Keep thinking about how you can support other people. Keep thinking about how the credit at the end of the day doesn't matter. But also really leaning into some of those technologies, because some even that we started with in 2018 have really risen to the forefront. I mean, talking about a blockchain type technology, and it wasn't new in 2018, but it was just kind of scratching the surface. And now look in 2022, what is happening in that world? Look at NFTs, and just I have a friend who just sold one for stupid money. I mean, he sold some type of ape for $100-something thousand, and I want to bang my head against the table doing that. But I'm also so proud of him for being that forward thinking to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. I mean, the opportunities for entrepreneur like is ridiculous. So I started my entrepreneurial journey in Florida, and the only really thing to, in Florida that I thought was invest in real estate, right? Real estate, real estate, real estate. If you're an investor, you invest in real estate. But after, learning about entrepreneurship and kind of traveling around, there are so many opportunities for entrepreneurs to build something, to invest, and especially in the world where you could have a virtual office and your customer base is now the world, right? Things have changed through technology. What have you seen in terms of, through 2018 and having these events and having, these groups and being the connective tissue? What have you seen, you know, that surprises you, that shocks you in terms of innovation for, things that are coming out of Florida? Give us an example.
Um, that's a really good question. What surprises me for innovation that's coming out of Florida? I think Florida is being very forward thinking, especially now in terms of things like autonomous vehicles. And I think that's something that is really nice and fascinating. I think Florida's being very forward thinking in terms of smart cities, and what is happening with IoT. And I think Florida is beyond that, just being so forward thinking about utilizing crypto and cryptocurrency, and just that decentralization aspect of who's in control and putting people in control of their own power, their own destiny, and being so supportive along the path. I mean, looking at like a Mayor Suarez, for example, and just his tweet, how can I help? There's so many people here in Florida who are so open and so much like Mayor Suarez himself that they want to be able to help. They want to be a part. They want to encourage and to enable, versus trying to be so competitive that they're holding people back for the sake of their own good. And that's the type of thing that always surprises me, because it's always about the type of person you're working with that can help to predict success.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. Yeah, I think that Florida's doing some amazing stuff. We live in Central Florida, and we're airing this out of a little place called Ocala, right? So, they're building some incredible things here in terms of innovation and technology. In Tampa, holy moly, you guys have a massive ecosystem for entrepreneurs and startup communities. Like you mentioned a while ago about like the 5 points of ecosystems that you added to and evolved. Can you give us an idea of what those are? Because as we build our own ecosystem, we'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah, and the one thing to say about those 5 points is they don't all have to always be there or be a leader. Oftentimes in any ecosystem, and this is one of the things the article talked about, was one of them stands out. And one of them is what actually gets things moving. It's the igniter of the ecosystem. So if you go back to entrepreneurs, investors, corporations, government, educational institutions, in Silicon Valley, it was the research that stemmed out of Stanford and Cal that led to Fairchild Semiconductor, that then led to what happened with creating what the Valley is. In Chicago, it was the hard-nosed entrepreneurs. In New York, it's the money and the investors. But that article then goes and talks about Cincinnati and how the businesses that are there really helped to drive it. Kroger, Macy's, Procter and Gamble. They didn't want to go the way of Circuit City back, and especially during the recession of 2008 through 2012. And so looking at a city in a market like Ocala, You're not too far off from University of Florida, but look at what might be there who can help be that igniter overall, whether it's maybe a couple businesses that are there. Maybe it's a particular industry or something that people can lean heavily into. I mean, studying Startup Nation Central, which is based out of Tel Aviv, one of the organizations we studied a lot, and going there and learning from the Tel Aviv ecosystem, they talk about they have three main industries that people create startups for. And it's healthcare, agriculture, and defense. And the reason they do that is because of needs and problems that they have. The country Israel is surrounded by a body of water and on three sides by enemies. So their defense needs to be strong. If something were to go wrong there, the agriculture would need to be strong. They need to be able to continually feed themselves, and they need to be able to take care of themselves. And so people really lean into those three industries for a particular reason. I would highly encourage people to try to create a critical mass of companies for a particular thing, whether it's cybersecurity or healthcare or who knows what, whatever it might be, consumer goods. Agriculture and ag tech is something that's been massive these last few years, especially across Central Florida. Those types of things can help make differences to solve real world problems.
Yeah. Is this when you were going through school, you went to, Michigan and then you went to UF and is this what you thought you would be doing when you were going through school?
I had no clue what I thought I'd be doing, quite honestly. I my dad is a doctor. I could have at age 17 said, I want to be a doctor. And my life would have been decided for me. I knew where I would live. I knew what I would do. And I've always been the type of person who wants to create my own path. And so I actually went to school, and my bachelor's and master's were in aerospace engineering. So have the rocket science background. Thus, what I went out to California for. I had no clue what I was going to do, though. And I kind of was figuring out my path along the way and learning and going through different companies and raising through the ranks and saying, all right, I don't like this. I really like this. Here's someone I can learn from. I'm learning from this person, even though I don't like them at all. And like, I'm learning what not to do. And that helps me with different levels of growth and figuring out what's right for Brian Kornfeld versus, because what's right for Brian Kornfeld isn't necessarily the same as what's right for Stephen Kornfeld, my dad, or for anybody else, or what people might expect of somebody. And entrepreneurship makes perfect sense at that point. And that's why when I talk some things about decentralization and owning your own protections, data, I like owning my own path. And that's why I'm so fascinated in the Web3 world right now. It's creating your own path is something that is so powerful, and doing the things that you have to do so then you get to do the things that you want to do in long term is something that that's living. Like at the end of the day, that's what living can be. Not to steal the name of a Jimmy Buffett song, but that's what living is to me. It can be something that is very powerful and very fulfilling and very mission driven, and many different people have different missions, but finding out how you can help support that mission, then it's not work. It's then you're doing something that you love.
Yeah. And I could tell you absolutely love this. Are you now you're engineer, rocket scientist, right? And then now we see you speaking on stage and, being the connective tissue, building an organization to be a connector, right? Is that natural to you? Is that something that you had to learn? Are you naturally extroverted or introverted? Like, how did this evolve based around kind of you?
Um, that's a really good question. I'm a mix of an extrovert and an introvert. I'm definitely not the prototypical engineer. When I got my first job back here in Tampa after I moved back in 2009, the company was a company of 400 people, and I was the one engineer that could have a human conversation. And not to like say engineers are all one way, but engineers do have a stigma, and a lot of them are, and most engineers are super smart at what they do, very logical thinkers. And I'm a logical thinker myself, but I've also done some weird personality tests where it's like, all right, you're either going to be the operational logical thinker or you're going to be the visionary type thinker. There's these small percent of people who fit right in the middle, and somehow I'm right in there. I then went to a large company, realized I didn't like large company culture. And in the time I was doing my MBA, and in that MBA program, you had the same classes. It was an executive program with the same cohort, 36 people for 2 years. And I made a conscious decision because at that time when I was starting it, I hated public speaking. And I said, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. And I'm going to be a leader in this class. And I'm going to step up and I'm going to say things that people may not want to hear. And I'm just going to stand on it. So the very first class was ethics class. And I remember having these arguments with people and having arguments. I mean, one of the case studies that we had to do was about the website Ashley Madison. And Ashley Madison is for people who don't know it, it's a dating website for people who are married to meet other married people. And the question was, is it ethical? And so I knew the obvious answer is no, it's not ethical. It's an enabler for bad behavior. But if 36 people's are arguing the same thing, then it's not a great conversation. So I figured I was going to take the opposite side argument. And it was me and one other person. So it was 34 against 2. And like, it was just, it was one of those conversations where people know, even if you don't actually believe in it, you can take a stand and argue one way or another and have those conversations. And it started to build me up a little bit more with confidence and as a leader that I felt comfortable in front of a group. And it might have started with 36 people, and then it was 100 people, and then it might have been 150 people. And then next thing I knew, I was on a stage in front of 5,000 people. I'm like, oh my God, here's like, now how am I supposed to talk without shaking? Got some great advice from a number of people, took some public speaking classes. Actually, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was from a co-founder of Synapse, Andy Hafer. And right before I went to go do the first talk that I gave at the first Synapse Summit, he said, make sure you memorize your first line and exactly what you want to say before you walk on the stage, the very first line. Because once you get started, the boulder's rolling. And so that got me knowing at that point that I had enough confidence in myself to start a company and learned a lot about entrepreneurship from that point. And so I launched my first company in 2013 and it failed miserably. I mean, like you name things that I could have done wrong and I did them wrong. Yeah. Anything, pull it out of a hat and it was done so poorly. But I learned more in that time frame than I could have learned from anything else. I spun that into a software development company. So I was helping as an ecosystem supporter. There, it was for people who had a good idea, but needed support to help get their product out to market for the very first time. And not just build a 1.0, but also give them a go-to-market strategy and a plan and maybe a little bit of a business plan and a marketing plan. And then that helped me start to meet people in the community and discover the problems of the ecosystem in that 2016 timeframe of what's wrong and why did my company stop growing. And then I got to meet Mark Blumenthal with Florida Funders and Andy Hafer again, and a number of great people through the community. Talked with Jeff Vinnick, the owner of the Lightning, who's doing a ton in tech investing in real estate in Tampa Bay in this market. And that all helped us really build these connections to say, okay, here's where Synapse can come from and here's what we really need.
That's cool. So I had a bunch of failed businesses as well. I'm a own my own path kind of guy too. Don't really fit into government work. Tried it. Big corporations tried it. Wasn't really a fit. I'm an entrepreneur through and through. Let me ask you this question: if you were able to go back and with the knowledge you have, with the experience that you have, with the connections and such, do you think you could make that first business work? And what are maybe one or two things that you would change to make it work?
Oh, well, I don't know, honestly, if I could make it work, but I would have a lot greater chance of success.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I didn't think of was monetization. It was one of those where it's like, here's a good idea, but I don't have customers that I'm selling anything to. So I would not honestly launch a first business without doing it. It was more of a social network style business. And everybody and their mother who was trying to launch a social network style business in 2013, it's like, oh, I'm just going to put it out on the app store and it's a fun idea and people will catch on to it and I'm going to become a billionaire and I'm going to make money from ad revenue. And now hearing myself say that, and every time I hear somebody say that, I want to bang my head through a wall. Not understanding network effects and how hard it is to have so many people who are present to create the value. If you don't have that level of growth, it's not ever going to create the value that's needed. Yeah. And so that helped me realize that that might not be there. And I would think twice or three times about starting that business. But now I would put a better team in place beyond just me. I would have somebody who knows what they're doing in marketing, because I have no clue what I'm doing in marketing. I will throw stuff on social media and hope that that works. And anytime somebody comes at me with a logo design, I say, that looks great. And I love that. And like this pops out. And I don't know if those colors go well together or not. Give me something blue and yellow in Michigan colors, and I'll be happy with it 110% of the time. Give me something in red and pewter in Bucks colors and tell me it's Bucks colors, and I'll be happy with it 110% of the time. That's just kind of how my brain works, and I'm fine with that. But I would still focus on the operational side, and I would put a lot more hustle in terms of getting it outbound and sharing as well.
Word. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, man, if we could go back and if we could go back, I would change X. So I like to share this with entrepreneurs and investors and people. So if you have that thing in your mind, if I could go back, I would do this differently. Then what you should take with that knowledge and wisdom is go to communities like what Brian's building and share your experiences. Talk about your past failures. Talk about the things that you've done right and also the things that you've gone wrong. Like, how did you screw up that first business? What did you do wrong? What did you do that, that made it fail? And I think that that's what one of the things you're building with this ecosystem and this community that you're building that I think is so valuable is getting people talking, learning from their successes and failures. Brian, what was your, as we look back over your journey, and let's just say we go out till you're 80 years old. You and I are sitting on the front porch in Tampa, and we're having a cocktail, and we look back and we go, we did it. Like, how do you know Synapse and your mission was successful? Like, how do you measure this?
I will measure it based on what the cocktail is. Are we drinking Jim Beam or are we drinking Pappy? No.
Happy.
There we go. I will look back and say that Synapse is successful if people are looking around saying, Florida's the place that I need to be if I want to be successful, whether I'm from here or whether I'm from outside the area. And we're starting to see that happen a little bit. We're starting to see it happen a lot with Miami right now. We're starting to see it happen a little bit with Tampa. Starting to see it happen a little bit with Orlando. But if people are saying, I want to build my company, I want to build the next unicorn, I'm on my path and I'm on the way. And the only way I'm going to be successful is if my headquarters is somewhere in the Sunshine State, then that is going to showcase it, because it's not just about the one company. Looking at, there's a company called ConnectWise that exited a couple of years ago. They're still called ConnectWise now, but they sold. Now they're led by a private equity fund. And their CEO, Arnie Bellini, when he sold the company, he ensured 70 people became millionaires. He took money off the top for himself, CEO the entire time of the company, but he was exiting and he wanted to make sure 70 people became millionaires. And not just for them to become millionaires, but so they could start a company or so they could invest. And if they start a company and say 10 of them start a company where they can hire 5 executives that can grow with the company along the path, all with equity. And in 5 to 7 years, they sell for, call it $100 million. And now you have not just 70 people who are millionaires, but in a short period of time, you have about 500.
Yeah.
And then you do that again, and you go from 500 to a couple thousand. Yeah. And you do it again. And like, that's how this network effect really can work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I have 8-year-old daughter, 4-year-old son, 2-year-old daughter, and then done. Josh is done. Trust me. My goal is that when my daughters or my kids, right, go to build a business, that they don't have to leave Florida, that they, unless they want to, right? Like, I chased venture capital and I've moved around the country a little bit to find out my own entrepreneurial journey. But, like Ocala, Florida, what we are doing here is awesome. And my goal, and I'm with you on this, if they don't have to leave to go chase jobs or money, that'd be a win for me. And yes, we'd be drinking Pappy all day long. Or I like tequila. I like the tequila with the bell on top. That thing is pretty smooth. Are you a tequila drinker?
What'd you say?
Are you a tequila drinker?
I'm not a tequila drinker. I'm a bourbon guy. I like my whiskey. So that's where I went for there. And Pappy's going to be nice and recognizable for anybody, and they know the couple $1,000s a bottle. But I'm right there with you. I have a 7-year-old son, and then a 7-year-old son who's 1 minute younger than him. And so with my two boys, I would love for them, and they have little shirts. They'll say "Future Entrepreneur." I'd love for them to be entrepreneurs and growing companies here in the state, or working for companies here in Florida, doing whatever it is that they want to do, that they feel comfortable with, that they can thrive on. But if they can do it here and they can be close, and eventually one day I can have grandkids that I get to play with and see all day, every day, that's going to be the dream.
That'd be a win, huh? So at your event coming up, what kind of topics do you think will be, talked about in the arena and at the different booths and the different speakers? Like what should we expect?
Expect a very wide range. We don't just partake and look at one different industry or technology. I know we've kind of beat the Web3 horse a little bit here, but thinking about things like cybersecurity, thinking about financial tech as a whole. Clean tech is something that we really look at, whether it's energy technology, or how are we helping to clean the world up. There's so many problems, like what's going on in the oceans and with trash in the oceans right now. So clean and green technology, defense tech, it always has some really cool stuff. So you have the flight and the aerospace that goes as a part of that. Drone technology is always a fun part of that. Those are the types of things, and just sky's the limit in terms of what might be there. VR and AR, XR is something that can be a very big deal.
Wait, what were
AI,
those? VR,
VR,
AR.
AR, and XR.
What's
So
XR?
XR is like a cross between virtual reality and augmented reality, or a different reality. It's a terminology that people use if it's not quite one or the other, and it mixes a cross between them.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm learning. I mean, this is the purpose of the show, so I can learn, but the investors in our community and the fellow deal makers out there can learn about deals and learn about things that are going on in their local communities and in the world, so that they can know what kind of deals to look out for. That's the mission purpose of the shows, so that we could do deals with fellow deal makers that you know, like, and trust. Brian, as you're building out, let's just say you and I were sitting on the front porch drinking Pappy, and we win the lottery. I bought a scratch off ticket. Dude, you and I hit it big. And we don't have to invest, but we want to invest. What are going to be two initiatives that you would want to say, "Hey Josh, let's go in on this together"?
I mean, for me, I would definitely go back to my aerospace days, and invest in space technology.
Mhm.
I love some of the things with space technology. One of the things from 2021 that I followed very closely was the launch of Inspiration 4. Things that are going on with SpaceX. It's always incredible to me. The reusable space vehicles, the fact that they sent 4 civilians into outer space. And then what's coming next? Colonizing other planets. Are we going to Mars? And not just because people are billionaires and they can go to outer space, but because what are the benefits? What are the life benefits that are there? And then in healthcare, healthcare, I think, is just such a big thing right now. And you only get to live once. So how do we make things better for life? How do we make cures for cancer? How do we help innovate in ways that can increase quality of life? And if I had to go with a third technology here, if I was going aerospace, if I was going healthcare, something that can cure a little bit of the political climate that's going on. And I know that's not one that's going to be said very often here, but it's just getting so polarizing right now, and so negative across the country from so many perspectives, not one perspective or the other by any means, from both sides, that if there's a way to help really push people to help support each other and help each other, and help each other have better lives and work together and really have that community feel. I think that would make everybody a lot happier as a whole, versus pointing out problems.
Yeah. Now you are a connector at heart. You're a peacekeeper at heart, a community builder at heart. And I could see that kind of theme spread across you. So I salute you for that. That's really cool. Uh, Few things. One is I've got this deck of cards that have questions on it, right? Random ass questions that I have no clue what it's going to go. So tell me when to stop.
Stop.
All right. So the question is, when was the last time you laughed uncontrollably? Tell us about the situation.
When was the last time I laughed uncontrollably? Last night, actually.
Okay.
And it had nothing to do with work. My wife had asked one of my kids, what does he want for a snack before dinner? And keep in mind, he's 7 years old. He looks up and he goes, charcuterie. And I'm like, why a 7-year-old? And then also my other son, not to give one the credit versus the other. Uh, I've been obsessed with Wordle since it started to get in the forefront. So all of like a week now. And one of my friends sent me that he was really struggling and showed me that he was on to his sixth guess and he wasn't quite sure what it was. And one of my kids had done yesterday's in 3 and sending it to him, and the response of that and the back and forth of that was really good. And even I'll go a little more recent. About half an hour before this, just in the office, the team in the office, getting ready for the summit, stress is high. And one of the guys like, I'm going to put on some music. And he put on Rick James Super Freak. And just everybody started laughing in the office as a whole, trying to like, good team building, team bonding activity, stuff like that of just, okay, this is really funny. And then we've all been giving each other awards on Post-it notes with just a handwritten star. And so he got the DJ of the Day award with a gold star on it for him. And everybody's getting a good laugh out of it. And I love a culture like that in an office where you can have fun with each other, even when the stress is getting higher.
Is that going to be the theme song of the VIP dinner, the Super Freak?
Might be now, might have to be now. I don't know. As long as it's not, we don't talk about Bruno, I'll be perfectly happy.
Oh my gosh, my kids sing that song all day long, and I
I
hear it all
still
day long.
haven't watched Encanto. I mean, I love Disney. I'm a big Disney fan. I love getting over there, either with just my wife or with my wife and kids. And yes, I'll go drink around the world at Epcot or something of that nature. It's but that song, oh my God.
Yeah, I hear you. So, Brian, one more time, tell us about the event coming up and where people could go to find out more information about it.
Yeah, the 2022 Synapse Summit will be here February 17th. It's an all-day event. It actually is surrounded by Tampa Bay Innovation Week, so it's the center of the week, even though it's on Thursday, where people can come, and there's going to be 30 something events going on through the Tampa Bay area through the course of that week. Tickets are on sale now. We're expecting over 5,000 people, over 300 exhibitors, 120 speakers, about 60 or so sessions over the course of the day. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be action-packed. It's going to be energizing. It's not an event to be missed. If you're within driving distance, if not, come get a hotel, hang out for the night, stay for the after parties, and you can learn more about it at synapsesummit.com.
Very cool. What question, like as we're talking, personal or business, that I should have asked you so people could get to know the deal maker a little bit better? What questions should I have asked that I screwed up and didn't ask?
You should have asked me, what question didn't you ask that you should have asked?
Take it from
Because
here, Brian.
it caught me right off guard. I don't know, because you asked me things about like what motivates me, what drives me. I mean, you can pick another one out of the card deck if you want to. There was no real question there that you didn't ask.
All right. Here's a question that I like to ask deal makers, right? So you and I just closed this huge deal, right? We get the state of Florida to sponsor, and we're opening up a Synapse in every single, city across Florida. We're busy. Our team grows 10x and we're crushing it. Like Florida becomes the place and we get to celebrate. All right? So you get to buy something for yourself to celebrate, and then we get to do something to celebrate as the massive team that we've developed. What would you buy? I've interviewed a few other people, and they're like, I like shoes. Me personally, I like hats. So what would be your purchase, and then what would we do as a group to celebrate?
Um, I would purchase a vacation. But I love seeing things and experiencing things,
Yeah.
for me personally. So it's not always just about the what do you have. I mean, things that you have, yes, that can last longer than a vacation, but memories last a lifetime.
Mm.
And so I would go find somewhere in the world that I've never been to and say, this is where I'm going, and go with family or go with my wife, and just have fun, and a mix of adventure and relaxation. And as a celebration, I mean, I always love celebrating with the team. We would just throw a party for the ages, and everybody we would be inviting, we would invite spouses and friends and our board and our supporters, the people who believed in us from day one, and said, this is necessary and is going to be successful, from back 5 years ago. And even invite some of the doubters from 5 years ago who said, no, this isn't going to work. And just have it be the type of event that people will remember, something that stands out that they will remember for the rest of their lives.
All right. So, Brian, it's got to be a costume party. And I text you and I go, hey, Brian, I'm coming to the event. I'm coming to the party, the celebration of a lifetime. What kind of costume should I wear? What's the theme?
What kind of costume should you wear?
Yeah.
I'm trying to tie something in with Ocala and hats. Maybe there's a good John Travolta character
Yes.
from somewhere, or you should dress up as a highlight player, maybe from up in the
Okay.
Ocala highlight.
Yeah.
No, I honestly, I like people being themselves. And
Yeah.
I like people being authentic and not being told what to do and how to act and how to dress. It's one of the things, even about with the summit, there's going to be people in suits, and there's going to be people in jeans and a t-shirt, and everything in between. And so what people are comfortable with. So I would tell you to dress up as you, but maybe wear like 20 hats, or maybe go with like a Dr. Seuss hat or something to make it stand out.
Okay. I might wear 20 hats to this. Now, speaking of Ocala Highlight, because you went to UF, so do you remember when they did like the 50 cents beer and hot dog nights?
Was it Wednesday nights? I think it
What I
was.
think so, yeah. Because I would
I
drive from Ocala to Gainesville and stop at Ocala Highlight.
I
I don't
would.
even know what Highlight is, but it was fun.
It's a beer here. No, it's a betting game, and it's a game where it's a sport, kind of like wall ball. If you ever played as a
Yeah.
kid, you have a big basket on your arm. You got to throw the ball against the wall and only let it bounce once. It's a weird mixed game that people bet on. But it's a lot of fun, and you can get really into it. And yes, when I was 22, 23 years old, I would definitely drive down or have friends drive down, because 50-cent beer night can add up very quickly. And I was not going to be driving back at that point.
Yeah. It was a fun thing because you can, for $5, man, you could fill up your belly and you get to yell and cheer and such like that. In a sport, you really don't know what's going on, but it was a lot of fun. But Brian, what's going on in Florida is really cool, and want to thank you for all the things that you're doing for our future generations. So our kids don't have to leave the beautiful state of Florida. Let me ask you one more question. As you're going through this process in building this, what are some needs that you have from the community, from other people in Florida, investor groups, talent groups, companies? Like, what's a need that you see that we could pitch in and help with?
For me, the need is show up and support the organizations who are helping to make this happen. Because if you help us doing things and looking at, there's other organizations like us, other nonprofits, and help us and reach out and sponsor and support. We're there to help make your life easier. And there are some people who still are going to say, oh, well, I'm only going to go if I get this ROI out of it. And the ROI may not come right away. So have some trust, have some faith, give it a period of time, and understand that we're going to be here to make your life easier. And that with organizations like a Synapse, it'll make your growth go faster. It'll make access to opportunities more prevalent. And so being a part and just showing up and doing one thing, contributing, meeting one person, can help change the trajectory of everything. Everybody, I read a tweet this morning and it kind of caught me off guard. So you are one decision away from changing the entire trajectory of your life. Mm. And that is powerful when you think about it. Just one small thing. And that could be the one person you shake hands with. It also could be the one person you don't shake hands with, and how that divergent path can go. Um, and so thinking about it in that light, give yourself the chance to succeed.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, one more time, where can we go to find out more information and buy a ticket or maybe sponsor the event?
You can learn more at synapsesummit.com, or follow us on social media at synapsefl.
Cool. And what we'll do is we'll put all those links in the show notes. So people, if you're driving around, you can click on the show notes and connect directly to Brian, his team, and what he's got going on. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening into the Deal Scout. If you're working on a deal, looking for a deal, or would like to come on the show and talk about a deal, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, we'll talk to you all on the next episode. See you guys.